welcome back to another exciting episode of bringing Jesus back into focus. Why was he out of focus? Was he blurry? How come? In the 4th century, under Constantine, Emperor Constantine in Rome, the Christian leaders, who were all pacifists, of course, following the spiritual way into the spiritual world through pacifism, they were in a spiritual understanding of who they really are, which would leave their physical body of flesh, as Jesus taught at the time of death. Constantine, of course, started to influence them when he stopped persecuting them, so they went, "Hooray, thank you, Constantine. What can we do for you?" He said, "Well, I still want to go and kill people with my army, and now they're sort of becoming Christians, and I think we might sort of start moving in that direction, so my boys have to still kill, and they can be Christian." And the Christian leaders said, "Oh, gee whiz, well, that's not the way you can do it. You can't be a soldier and a Christian." But then within about 40, 50, 60, 70 years, guess what? All soldiers in the Roman army to kill and be Christians. They could kill all they want and be Christians, followers of Jesus, of love and non-violence. So they corrupted the teachings of Jesus, and as soon as they did that, they converted all Christians back to worshipping the Jewish God Yahweh. Yahweh is not a monotheistic God. There's not one God in the Jewish religion. There's two gods. One is a violent, brutal, murdering war god, exactly the same as Mars, the Roman war god Mars, the Greek god Ares, the Egyptian god Sekhmet. They were all brutal, violent killers and genocidal. They'd steal land under these gods' influence, etc. And the Jews did exactly the same thing. And they went to the temple of their war god called Yahweh, the temple of Yahweh. The Romans went to the war god temple Mars. The Greeks Ares, Sekhmet. But the Romans, the Greeks and the Egyptians were more honest. When they wanted to make love and peace with neighbouring countries or whatever, they had another temple to go to and another god, a god of love and peace. And they'd ask that god to help them be forgiving and loving and get on with these people and not kill them. Respect them as if they're equals. And they asked for this loving God to help them do that. Now the Jews had the same type of loving God, to help love your neighbour as yourself. Treat a foreigner like a Jew. That's in their teachings. The loving God's there along with the war God, murdering war God. But they did not make a second temple. They were cunning. They were devious. They thought, let's put our war God and our God of love together under the one roof, and let's call them by the same name. Now that is really dangerous. That is wrong. You're calling black white and white black. You mustn't do that. So that's a big problem, schizophrenic religion. So then what happened is it all got overlaid onto Jesus and the divine loving spiritual creator of Jesus that he was at one with, which is only love, singular. So this beautiful spiritual being of love, and Jesus, a beautiful spiritual being of love, suddenly got turned into a son of Yahweh, the one who kills and murders the enemies and steals, and also loves sometimes. So then the Christian religion became poisoned from then on. It became the Jewish Christian religion. The Bible's got two different religions in it. Cut the Bible in half. What's more than half? The Jewish religion makes up about 4/5 of the bloody Bible. So cut that up and stick the Jewish religion on the shelf. And if you're a Christian, don't look at it again for 10 years. Rip out the book of Revelation and burn it. That is the Old Testament book of Daniel, an evil book placed and dumped into the New Testament to slander Jesus as being the satanic figure who comes on the clouds to cause death, sickness, suffering and wars. To cause everything that Jesus did the opposite of when he was alive. That is a stinking, slanderous book, and all the Jewish Christian churches teach it, and it is a disgrace. So I thought, well, I better do something about this because I really like you. So I said, I'm a gardener, but I'll do my best. The Gospels of Jesus Unplugged is a new translation. Did that about a year ago based on the Greek interlinear. It's quite traditionally written, but the language is different. I don't say God the Father. It's loving spiritual creator. So it's a much more universal understanding of Jesus being love and non-violent, and the God of Jesus is love and non-violent, the divine source of this spiritual world, which is a higher existence than this one. We're in the dirt and the mud, They're in the spiritual world up there, which is beautiful. And only love, though, you see. So that's out there in the world. You can buy that. I think you'll find it very interesting if you're a Jewish Christian. And young people have been impressed by it. Older people who have been indoctrinated into worshipping Yahweh, they don't understand why I've left out certain apocalyptic things. The answer is because they're lies. So the Teachings of Jesus Unplugged is the book coming out in the first 2 weeks of 2026, and that's a much more powerful book. simply really concentrating on the truth of what he taught, as opposed to the lies that are being overshadowing him and blurring him and the divine loving spiritual creator who's only love. I got really angry when I visited all these different denominations around town here in Melbourne, Australia. They were just synagogues. A lot of them were Jewish synagogues, just banging on about the Old Testament and the book of Revelation. I never realised how bad that was, how evil that had become in some of these so-called Christian churches. So I thought, well, I'm going to do something about that. So there's the two books. There's the cover, a back cover of the teachings book. And it simply reads, "The spiritual teachings of Jesus are a universal calling to all human children on earth to awaken into our spiritual body in true identity of love and non-violence before our dualistic body and mind of the flesh dies and returns to the earth. Only our spiritual body and soul live on. We must prevent the dualistic mind of our earthly body of flesh from controlling us and become at one with our spiritual mind, filled only with the loving life force of our loving spiritual creator. Then our two bodies, one made of the earth and one formed of spirit, can be in harmony and at one in purpose to bring the spiritual love and peace of heaven to earth for all children. Only true spiritual children of light and love can enter the heavenly spiritual world. All those children divided within themselves between love and hatred cannot enter. The words of Jesus can awaken and transform us." I've been extremely ill in the recent years, and my horse, I call our human bodies horses. We're spiritual riders on an earthly horse. We're at one in purpose if you're loving and kind. So anyway, my physical body's under attack from a neurotoxic fungal infection from my gardening career and other such things. So the daily prayer to center yourself into spirit. So I've got to really focus now on my spiritual body, because I could leave any day now. I've nearly died hundreds of times already in the last sort of 4 or 5 years. So it's a matter of, for me, it's a great blessing to nearly die every day. And the pain's no good, but no one likes pain. But I've been able to focus and get ready, because it's quite urgent for me because of the poisoning. And this is the prayer I came up with. I found it really helpful. Even when I'm in a lot of pain, I still find this prayer really helpful. So I share it with you. I use the word she to represent this beautiful divine loving creator that Jesus talks about. Women give birth to our physical bodies on earth. Why not think that this divine spiritual being that our spiritual bodies come forth from is also like female? It doesn't matter though. That spiritual beings are beyond gender. Jesus even said that. You don't have a biological body in heaven. You have a body like an angel. You're spiritual. It's different. It's a different world, different body. So you have to understand that. Body of light and love. This is the prayer. To center yourself into your spiritual body, sit quietly and just repeat this prayer. Use he instead of she if you want to. As I rest upon this earth, the Holy One, she will give birth to who I really am, awakening me from clay and sand, a spiritual child of the divine, with only her love that fills my mind. To every creature I will be kind in every single land, for this is truly who I am, a spiritual child of the loving spiritual creator in the heavenly spiritual world, born out of the earth, to bring her love to children in need and help guide them home to heaven as she has guided me, through the spiritual way and teachings that Jesus gave us to be just as he, a spiritual child of love on earth. Those words help me understand who I really am. Not just only here, but beyond death of the flesh, the body of the flesh. The logo I use in my work is the Spirit Earth logo with the cross and the dove in the one circle. They're the two bodies that Jesus had. The body of flesh on the cross died and was buried and rotted, just like all bodies do. And he said the only thing to do with those dead bodies of flesh is to feed them to the vultures. They're his words. His spiritual body, the dove, flew away to heaven. And he said, we've all got this exact same two bodies with us. Everyone has, he said. That's what he taught. So I could get ready to leave in my spiritual body by getting into it and living out of it and become a character of spirit, of love. And then I'll be ready to go and be in the presence of this divine spiritual source of my spiritual body and life, which is pure love. This spiritual being or consciousness is only love, pure, like gold, untainted. If I come into her presence, or the presence of heaven, covered in filth or murder and slaughter like the warmongers, and I stink and covered in filth, you can't enter that beautiful world. It's just not possible. You have to be cleansed, and that's what hell is. So it's a nice prayer. I like it a lot. I share it with you. I'll send you a PDF if you want to email me. If you want he, just let me know you want he instead of she, and I'll change it. Chapter 23 of the Teachings of Jesus Unplugged by me. Our characteristics as spiritual children. This is just a general dialogue about the main aspects of how you become, what you think, how you live, what you believe. This is just a general dialogue, but I just had to put something together that sort of consolidates, who I am, or who you should be, and who we all should be. Okay, our characteristics as spiritual children. Jesus said if we are to become true spiritual children of our loving spiritual Creator in the heavenly spiritual world, we must become at one with her perfect love. This is quite logical, as she has created our spiritual body and life from her own loving creative powers, which are all perfect and pure. So we must align our inner selves with this spiritual perfection while here on earth to be called her true spiritual children of love. Jesus provides us with the spiritual characteristics we must have to bring our spirit to life, filled with light and love, empowered by our loving spiritual Creator's life force. This is what is called enlightenment. He gives them to us through his words and his actions. The following are some of the spiritual characteristics we must believe in and practice every single day of our life. The more we practice, the more we will be like a spiritual child of our loving Creator in the heavenly spiritual world. Jesus had all the spiritual characteristics and practiced them in perfect harmony, and so entered the heavenly spiritual world after his body of flesh died and returned to the earth. All we have to do is follow his spiritual way to heaven, as he was the trailblazer who went before us to show us the way of spiritual love that leads us safely through this dangerous material world to our eternal spiritual home. The heavenly spiritual world really exists. Just because we are born into a body of flesh restricted by our physical senses does not mean another whole world and universe exists that is formed from a different spiritual life force of love. Which is why Jesus said we must awaken into our spiritual body now to connect with it and enter into it after our body of flesh dies. Always have faith that heaven can see you and they know everything you are going through, even though you may feel alone. They will help you in any way they can. For if you believe in them, all we have to do is ask and stay connected to them to receive their support. How we receive it is best known to them, for they can see further ahead in our life than we can. We must just remember they are with us in our joy and with us in our suffering, and will only love us and never harm us. Unlike the Jewish Christian poisoning dialogue, which I do not teach or share or believe in, or neither did Jesus. Our loving spiritual Creator really exists. Have faith in the existence of our loving spiritual Creator in the heavenly spiritual world of love, even though we cannot see her with our eyes of flesh, but must feel her presence in the spiritual way of love that Jesus taught us to live out of. Be fully aware that she can see you all the time and will support and guide you on your journey through this dangerous material world of suffering to reach the heavenly spiritual world of love. Understand she is only love and is not the two-headed God Yahweh of the Jewish religion. Believe our spiritual body and soul mind of love is perfect and has come forth from her pure love for us to have true life in heaven if we wish to accept it. Without a deep belief in the heavenly spiritual world, our loving spiritual Creator and spiritual life after death of our body of flesh, we will not be able to follow the full spiritual way of love that Jesus taught. They help us to stay on course, receive support from heaven, and help us cross over to reach the yonder shore of heaven when our body of flesh dies. The spiritual way to heaven really exists. Jesus teaches a powerful, intelligent, and logical spiritual way of life to follow that transforms us, awakening our spiritual body and soul mind of love that leads us out of this temporary, dangerous material world to the heavenly spiritual world of love that is eternal. The way exists. Buddha taught it too. Jesus even taught another form of love by reaching out and help those who have fallen down. Love in action. Buddha was more passive love. They both experienced that. Pacifist child of our loving Creator. You have heard it said of old, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth, but I say to you, you must resist retaliating evil with evil, but instead, whoever strikes you on your right cheek, turn the other to him also. You have been taught you shall love your neighbour, but hate your enemy. I say to you, love your enemies, bless them that curse you, do good to those who hate you, pray for those who spitefully use you and persecute you. For our loving Creator makes her sun to rise on the evil and the good, and sends rain on the just and the unjust, and is kind to the ungrateful and the evil. Love your enemies, do good, and lend, hoping for nothing in return, and your spiritual reward shall be great. Therefore, if you wish to be true spiritual children of our loving spiritual Creator in the heavenly spiritual world, your love must be as perfect as her love. Blessed are the peacemakers, pacifists in a violent world. I added that on. But that's what he's saying. This is the highest practice we can attain to as spiritual children on earth, and we must lead the way against all the evil warmongers and armies of the world who teach children to kill other children of our loving Creator. It's insanity. It is time for a pacifist revolution where young people must become spiritual and stand against all governments who support the armaments industry by creating armies to use their filthy, murdering, satanic weapons. I encourage all children in the world to never join armies. Without robot soldiers who are trained not to think for themselves and just be cannon fodder, the pathetic, demented, insane warmonger leaders could never create a war. Soldiers hold the power to stop wars by not being soldiers anymore. Instead, do something else that is loving with your short life. Instead of ships loaded with satanic weapons and children trained to kill, we need government ships loaded with aid, building materials for the homeless, food for the starving, machinery to dig wells, build hospitals, bridges or disaster relief, whatever may be needed, and medical supplies all for free. And instead of paying for an army of children trained to murder, pay for an army of children trained in all these fields of expertise. I wish my country, Australia, or some other nation would have the guts to lead the way. But without spiritual love, it will never happen. They will all continue the military madness. If the corrupt governments of the world can spend an annual $2.7 trillion on filthy, evil weapons of war, threatening other nations and starting wars, which is insanity, in a confined world, why can't they just spend it on helping everyone in need instead? Surely this is the only way for this little earth world to grow in trust, peace and love for all. What a disgusting waste of life, resources and taxpayers' money to create things that worship Satan and pervert the loving spiritual minds of children instead of creating loving things to help those in need, empowered by the loving life force of our loving spiritual Creator in heaven. We must demonstrate against all wars and the armaments industry in all nations as spiritual children of our loving Creator and followers of Jesus. Do not support any armies of war in your own country or elsewhere. Jesus gave his physical life to establish the pacifist Christian spiritual way to heaven. Now Christian countries have army chaplains who bless the troops before they go and kill other children of our loving Creator, doing what Jesus said not to do. This perversion of his spiritual way of love and non-violence must stop. Jesus said, put your sword or gun back into its holster. All who live by the sword or gun will perish spiritually by the sword or gun. No follower of Jesus can ever be a soldier of death. We can only give life. We can never give death. We must be fully committed to love and peace while we have the chance to do so. As we sow, so shall we reap. No man or government in this world has the right to force you into joining the military satanic armies. If you do join, they will want you to give up your free will power to choose what is right or wrong for yourself. Then you just become a brain-dead robot doing what some murdering general, government or president tells you to do. Never sell your soul to the devil for a gun, some money and medals. Keep your soul alive filled with love. Heaven's there, don't worry. You'll be okay. How to help in war. If a war engulfs our homeland, we can only partake in it as medical assistants or caregivers, and we must treat those wounded on both sides equally. We have come to save and be lights in the dark, not to condemn and kill like the children who become beasts of the flesh, false shadow identities of darkness, out of which all evil and wars come forth. Mahatma Gandhi took this avenue of approach during any wars he was involved in by organising medical assistants and stretcher bearers to help the suffering wounded. That is the way of Jesus as well. We are all her children. All human children on earth have a spiritual body like yours, as all our spiritual bodies are formed by the same loving spiritual creator and her life force to be her spiritual children. She loves us all equally, whether saint or sinner. Remember this when you meet someone for the first time to help reduce a false ego identity of arrogance from arising in you. Greet all children as friends, and no one as a stranger. For if you only greet your own brethren as friends and only love those who love you, what a limited and constricted spiritual practice that would be, as Jesus himself taught. Love flows freely into you from the heavenly spiritual world, so let it flow freely to all. Perfect love flows through perfect equanimity and enables us to be a friend to all in whatever way they may need help. Some may need strong, confronting love to stop their evil ways, and some may need gentle, supportive love to comfort them in times of suffering. Warn those who are committing obvious evil to others or themselves, like the warmongers. They are in grave danger of destroying their physical life and their spiritual life, and try to convince them in any way you can to stop their evil and change their ways. Even if we fail to change them, we are still obliged to speak the truth to them to try and save them, even if it is dangerous for us to do so. It is not our fault if they will not listen to our warnings. They are still a child of our loving spiritual creator, but lost in darkness, and heaven works through us to help them come out of it. In other cases, where a child of our loving spiritual creator may be homeless, a person who is ill and needs care, someone who has lost a loved one to death, or just a little child who needs to be loved, we provide gentle, supportive, comforting love to them. Each individual we help will need a certain type of love, and the wisdom from heaven that comes with love will assist us in doing the best thing we can for them. We must bring heaven's love to all, because that is the only answer to reduce all suffering in this world. Do not fear death of the body of flesh. Jesus taught, do not worry about anyone who can kill your temporary body of flesh that must die one day anyway, but can do no more to you. Rather be concerned that your spiritual body and soul are always filled and alive with the loving spiritual life force placed in them by a loving spiritual creator in the heavenly spiritual world, for that body is eternal and can take you to heaven. So do not let it wither and waste away while in the body of flesh, and protect it above all else. Jesus taught, do not over-worry about your temporary earthly life, earthly possessions, food or money, and your body of flesh, which must all come to an end one day anyway. But rather focus your attention on your eternal spiritual body and soul mind of love, and becoming at one with it now by awakening and living out of it while you have the chance. For this will lead you to heaven. Then bring heaven's love to other children in need while you wait to enter the heavenly spiritual world. That's a summary of his general dialogues. Jesus is always reminding us to move into and live out of our true eternal spiritual body and soul mind of love that does not die. This is an extremely important instruction, so we may see this temporary material world for what it really is and interact with it every day of our life through our eternal spirit. Without this approach, we may become entangled in the body of flesh through greed, self-indulgence, and ego powers, and forget about our spiritual body and life of love. Fully commit to leading a spiritual life while here on earth. He even gave up his body of flesh voluntarily to show us we all have another more important spiritual body with us right now that lives on in the heavenly spiritual world. As spiritual children of heaven on earth, we must all be prepared to do the same. There is no greater way to shine the light of the spiritual way of love and belief in heaven than making our body of flesh a secondary body that we can let go of, and our spiritual body our primary body that we hold on to. We must not be afraid to die to the temporary flesh, but be more concerned that we may not have the spiritual faith and courage to live by the Spirit. But as Jesus said, I have overcome this material world, and you can too. He's always saying, look, move into your spiritual body of love and non-violence. That's the one you've got to become at one with and be love and non-violence. Become it. If you become it, you will be spiritual. It's that simple. If you refuse, love, hate, kill, save, you're not in your spiritual body anymore. You're in the body of the flesh, the dualistic body. All flesh dies, rots and stinks. It's death. At the end is death. The true life leaves the body in the spiritual body. You want to be in that one. That's what Jesus said over and over and over and over, and obviously others like Buddha has too. Always be ready to leave. Always be ready for the body of flesh to die and come into the presence of our loving Creator who is pure love, by always living out of a loving life force, so you may awaken into a new life in your spiritual body and soul mind of love in the heavenly spiritual world. As spiritual children, we must look constantly towards the heavenly spiritual world every day of our life on earth, drawing inspiration, guidance, strength, and the loving life force we need to exist as true spiritual children of our loving spiritual Creator in heaven on earth. At any second, any hour, any day, any month of any year, our body of flesh could drop dead, and we have to leave it behind. Jesus was always reminding us to stay in connection with the heavenly spiritual world and our loving spiritual Creator, to be ready for when the death experience occurs and we come into the presence of heaven and our loving spiritual Creator. Jesus taught, the land of a certain wealthy man yielded plentiful crops. He thought to himself, what shall I do, as I have nowhere to store my crops? So he decided to pull down his barns and build greater ones to store all his crops and his goods. And he said to his soul, Soul, you have many goods laid up for many years. Relax and have a rest, eat, drink, and be merry. But that very night his spirit was called out of his body of flesh to be in the presence of our loving spiritual Creator. We never know the hour or the day, so always be filled with love and stay clean in spirit. You can be covered in mud if you're a farmer, that's okay. Some children will condemn you, that's for sure. Jesus warned his spiritual followers of love and non-violence that we will be hated by many who oppose the spiritual way of life. He taught, in this material world of love and hate, peace and war, selfishness and greed, you will be like sheep amongst wolves, and many will reject you and persecute you because of your spiritual way of love, forgiveness and non-violence that I have taught you. Do not be concerned, for heaven can see you, and your place there is safe, even though your life here on earth may not be. He's warning us. Those children who wake up who are spiritual and pacifist and non-violent, of course we're more vulnerable to the beasts of the flesh, but we have a much more important task, which is to shine the light of heaven to them as to how they could be themselves if they only realized they've covered their beautiful spiritual identity in stinking filth. We have to be clean so they can see that. There's another way. But it's obviously going to mean easy targets. True followers of great pacifist spiritual teachers like Jesus and Buddha can expect to be hated by followers of war gods, gods of greed in this temporary material world. And what they really hate is you shining the light of love and spiritual truth upon them, exposing their stinking, evil filth of war. Greed and hatred. By simply being a believer in the way of love that leads to the heavenly spiritual world, which they have no belief in. We must stand firm and strong in spirit against those who are weaklings in love and spiritual truth, lost in the darkness of their own making. How else can we save them except by showing them the way out of their darkness? But Jesus was also practical in his advice by teaching that if you are being persecuted for your spiritual way of love in one place, it is fine to move away from those children to a safer place if they are not willing to change. We saw this persecution take place during the Vietnam War in Australia and the USA, where children who refused to be drafted into their satanic armies were called draft dodgers and thrown into jail for refusing to take part in killing other children. In America, I know that many draft dodgers in America for the Vietnam War, they went to Canada. They fled to another place where they weren't going to be persecuted by their own people. This is what Jesus says. It's fine to do that. The main thing is we don't become like them. We don't become evil beasts of the flesh like they are. The rich and retaliate in kind. We don't do that. The rich hardly ever enter heaven. He said this many times. Jesus warned us many times, those children on earth who worship money and amass fortunes of material wealth at the expense of love are the poorest of all. Those who are rich and greedy hardly ever enter the heavenly spiritual world after their body of flesh dies. For what profit is it to a man if he gains the whole material world, but loses his own spirit and soul? As spiritual children, we do not spend our short life gaining and worshipping money or material possessions that will not go with us when our body of flesh dies. They are all just dust in the end. Instead, we gain all the spiritual love we can by sharing our own love with others every day. The more selfless we become and the more love we spend on others, the more we shall receive from heaven. That is the best investment to make with our lives on earth, because that is all we need to enter the heavenly, eternal spiritual world of our loving Creator after your body of flesh dies. You just need the ticket that says love on it. However, if we are blessed with having a large amount of money, it is extremely important to share it with those who have none and those who are in need. There are many charities that need to be supported financially for many good causes. Just like our spiritual love must be a flowing river we give to others for it to be alive and well used, so also extra money or wealth we have accumulated must flow from us to others in need for it to be used in a healthy, spiritual way also. Then our material life and spiritual life are at one in purpose and in perfect harmony with the loving life force in us that gives us true life. Jesus taught, give to him who asks of you, and from him who wants to borrow from you, turn not away. So material wealth does have a purpose, providing you're using it spiritually. Otherwise, it's a trap. If we are selfishness. If we are selfish, I think that should be. If we are selfish and greedy, this will block the spiritual, loving life force flowing into us that comes from the heavenly spiritual world into our spiritual bodies and souls to share with other children. This greed is not just about money, but also refusing to give compassion, support, comfort, kindness, sympathy, good advice, to really let that child know they are not alone in this world, to hold them in your arms and let them know from your own mouth and words that you care about them, whether you can help them financially or not. So being greedy is not just money, it's being greedy with your love. You don't give it to anyone. The most valuable thing you can give someone are your heartbeats, because you only have so many to spend. Eat and drink with the homeless on the streets or anyone who needs your help, and give them your companionship and support, no matter how poorly off they are or lost in sin they may be. For those who are well have no need of a doctor or friend, but those who are ill or alone do, as Jesus said. Always be generous in giving and sharing with others in need, whether it is material things or your time. No matter how much love flows out of you, the spiritual wellspring of heavenly love inside you, connected to heaven, just fills you up again. If we have an excess of money, share it with those who have none. If we have an excess of free time, share it with those in need of companionship, or volunteer to help in a loving charity. Enrich your spiritual life by sharing your love with others. Give of yourself, because in the end, that is all you really have. We must be impartial and without prejudice, and give the same quality of love to all. As Jesus said, if your eye or mind is single and sees all things with love, your whole body will be filled with light. But if you are divided within between love and hate, acceptance and rejection, us and them, you will be filled with darkness, and your own spiritual light will dim. If you see someone in distress, never pass them by thinking someone else will take care of them. For our loving Creator may be calling you to do it for her by drawing your attention to them. I'll tell you a little story here. That's when I was gardening. I had a job for a retired priest at St. Paul's Cathedral or Church in Melbourne. He'd retired, him and his wife. I was doing his garden, and I asked him one day about spiritual things and how heaven works in our life. And he said, I'll give you an example of how heaven's love can work in your life and help you and direct you and guide you and inspire you. And this is the story he told me. He began his work in Melbourne in St. Paul's Church in the city, Melbourne City, in the heart of the city, near Flinders Street Station. Now, opposite that building at the time, we're talking the 1960s, there was a big, tall structure going up called the Gas and Fuel Building, high-rise office building with scaffolding all around it. He had just started. He was a novice. He literally was on the lowest rung. He just came in to start studying or to practice being a priest in the church, etc. Others were way above him, been there longer, older, more wise, etc. And as he came in that morning, there was a big crowd outside the church and all in the streets, and they were all looking up, and there were TV cameras looking up. And he asked them, what's going on? And they said, there's a man up there. He's going to commit suicide. He's out on that balcony, out on the scaffolding. They can't get him in. He's going to jump. And he said, oh, okay. So he went into the church, into his little room and office, and he started praying. He said, God, I pray that man has someone there who can help him save his life, help save his life. And he said he just felt this sort of almost hand on his shoulder tapping him. You do it. And he just froze. He thought, me? Should I go over there? And he did. He went over, and down the bottom the police were there, and he said, look, I'm from across the road, so I'm a minister or whatever. Can I go up and talk to him? Certainly. We can't get him in. We can't get near him. If we try to get near him, he says he's going to jump. Okay, so he went up and he started talking to the man. Now, long story short, he talked the man in off the scaffolding and saved his life. And he went on to marry and have kids and kept in touch with that minister later on in life. But this is the kick in the story. The day before, when he was leaving St. Paul's, a fellow colleague gave him a little booklet. He said, look, this might come in handy here in the city and in your life as a minister and a priest. This is a book on people who commit suicide and how to help them. Have a read of it when you get a chance. Oh, okay, he said. So he took it home and he had dinner with his wife. And then after TV, he started reading the book. And he got halfway through it and they went off to bed. This is what he told me. He said, for some reason, I couldn't sleep at all. I don't know why, he said, but I just was wide awake. And the thought came to him, I'll finish that little booklet. It's not big. That was interesting. I'll finish it. So he went back out in the lounge and finished reading the little booklet on how to help someone who's going to commit suicide. He said to me, the next day, I used everything I read in that book to save that man's life. He said, that's how heaven helps us. That's no coincidence, that. Heaven exists. Be careful. They can see you and they can help you and love you. But be careful. They know what you're doing. Which is good if you're doing good things. See, that's a beautiful story, that. Really powerful. That was heaven working, guiding him. He couldn't sleep. He had to finish reading the book that he used to save the man the next day. Beautiful. That is heaven's power. That's a miracle. That's what you call a miracle. A sign or a wonder is the correct Greek translation. Where were we now? So, don't pass someone by thinking, someone else can do it. When you notice them, the chances are you're the one who has to go across. You're the one they need, or at least attempt to. You may not help them, but at least you have to go and try. Just like he wasn't going to go. He thought, who am I? I'm just beginning. Perhaps you should go and tell one of the higher guys, the higher, more older priests or ministers. No, he felt it. He felt this almost tangible force from heaven saying, you go, you do it. And he felt a bit scared, a bit frightened by that he would have to go and do that. He didn't feel at all qualified, but he knew there was something telling him that he had to do it. not ask for someone else, hope someone else does it. He had to do it. He felt it as clear as a bell, he said. There you go. So that's how it works. But you got to have a open line to heaven to get the message, you know. If your line's connected to all sorts of evil things, you'll get a different message from heaven. Heaven will give us all opportunities to grow in spiritual love and strength. Usually it is just through family commitments, but often it is the challenge of seeing a stranger in trouble and being tempted to pass them by, not get involved and let someone else help them. But this is no coincidence. It is a direct gift offered to you from heaven to open you up to experience more deeply the universal enlightenment of love within yourself that Jesus and Buddha experienced by letting go of your divided dualistic love and just becoming at one with love. Beautiful. Don't live in an ivory tower. Don't be tempted to create a false shadow identity to live out of, made from ego to dominate others and feel powerful. Never let the poisonous stinking weed of arrogance grow in your garden and smother the flowers of love. Living in an ivory tower built from your ego high above others is of little help to those in need on the ground. Never let your love grow cold. Never exclude someone from your love. Always try to include them. And if someone rejects your love, then pray that they receive it from someone else and keep on loving those near to you. Always stay true to your natural spiritual self and love others equally. For love is the greatest power of all. Jesus said, if you want to be truly great, become like a little humble child, free of ego, selfless and full of love, and be of service to all in need, for the heavenly spiritual world is made up of children like these. Care equally for both of your bodies. Our spiritual body and soul come from a pure source of love, and being at one with our body of flesh while here on earth, we must maintain a decent and natural good life for it to remain clean. As Jesus taught, your body of dead flesh is just food for the vultures. Your spiritual body will leave and be taken to be near to our loving spiritual creator in heaven. We must be ready. Treat your body of flesh with respect and feed it healthy foods and drinks. Give it exercise and rest. Never put dangerous substances into it that can hurt its structure or forcibly alter your mind. Without a healthy body of flesh, our spiritual body of love cannot manifest our love easily in this material world for other children. We are spiritual riders on an earthly horse, and we must take care of it and always hold on to the reins to direct our horse's actions to be on the actions of love and non-violence. Jesus taught, do not be good on the outside but rotten on the inside. It is the dirt inside the cup that needs cleaning. Before we can truly help other children who may be lost in selfish or evil ways, we ourselves must be washed clean of such things. Jesus taught, do not be a hypocrite and point out the speck in your brother's eye while you have a beam in your own eye. First remove the fault from your own life, and then you may see clearly in truth and love to help remove the fault from your brother's life. Do not judge the child, only the action. He who is without sin can cast the first stone. It is our own inner cleansing of our spirits that allows us to receive the loving spiritual life force from heaven to share with others in need. We must remove any rubbish or filth that we may have dumped on the inner wellspring of love, blocking its flow, before it can run clean to be fit to share with other children in need. Spiritual children keep their spirits and souls clean. Jesus taught, it is not what goes into your mouths that defiles our spirits, but what may come out of them. Control your thoughts and you will control your speech and your actions, and if you follow my words, you will remain clean. Buddha taught the same teaching as Jesus when he said, we must all remove the inner adventitious negativities from our minds, otherwise we will never become spiritually enlightened and free from the ignorance of not knowing who we really are. As Jesus taught, always live out of heavenly spiritual love, be compassionate, be merciful, do not condemn, do not judge, forgive, do no violence to other children, and be pure in heart, and you will become children of our loving spiritual creator in the heavenly spiritual world. Beware of temptations that lead you astray. Jesus taught, enter the heavenly spiritual world through the narrow gate, for wide is the gate and broad is the way that leads to destruction, and many enter in through it. But small is the gate and narrow the way that leads to spiritual life, and few there are that find it. Woe to this world, because it contains things that cause children to stumble, and woe to the one who brings them into existence. We are all born into a dangerous dualistic material world, and we must always be on our guard both physically and spiritually. But our spiritual life can only be damaged by ourselves if we open the door to the robber called sin or wrongdoing and let it come into our life and control us. As Jesus said, whoever commits sin and wrongdoings is a slave to sin and wrongdoing. We must stay in control of our own life and be responsible for it. Wrongdoings can act like parasites, draining us of all the good loving life force we have accumulated through selfless love. They can steal all the spiritual merit and spiritual strength we have stored up, making our spirits anemic and weak, unable to fight against sin anymore. Our body of flesh is like a vase holding the spirit of our living waters, and with each wrongdoing we are punching a hole in the vase, and more water leaks out, until there is none left to live out of, as a spiritual child of heaven. Keep your spiritual life healthy and strong by only doing good things, and only letting good things come into your spirit. Stand guard at the inner door to your spiritual life and soul mind of love, and refuse entry to any darkness or evil that can poison or feed off your spirit, weakening your spiritual life force of love. Just follow the words and spiritual way of love and non-violence that Jesus taught, and they will be your protection and the way that leads us through this dangerous dualistic material world to our eternal heavenly spiritual home. For the sheep are many and easily misled, but we have the shepherd Jesus and his teachings to guard us and lead us to greener pastures. Always say sorry and ask to be forgiven. If you do something that offends another child and our loving spiritual Creator, say sorry to the other child and ask our loving Creator to forgive you for abusing the precious gift of spiritual life she has offered you. Feel sincere remorse and the sin is washed clean. It is usually our false ego identity and arrogance that prevents us from saying the word sorry when we need to say it to someone. We must let go of our ego, overcome embarrassment, and speak truthfully as a child of love to restore our spirits to good health. But no matter how far we may have gone into the dark, by turning your back on the love and light of our loving Creator shining upon us, we only have to turn around to face her again, to feel her love still waiting to embrace us once more. She will never hurt us, but guide us patiently back with her light and love, as she never sees us as a lost cause, because we are her children, and she only loves us, not like the Jewish Christian two-headed God Yahweh dialogues, which are poisoning this truth. Her light and love can reach into the darkest places and bring us home to heaven. So we, as her children, must also see no one we meet as a lost cause, and keep loving them and act as the light that guides them home. Never abandon someone in need, and do your best to stay alongside them as your circumstances permit. One day you may need someone like they do. Anyone can fall down, anytime. Remember, we all reap as we have sown. What you give out to others in this life is what you will receive in your next life. The divine spiritual law of reaping, what we sow, is like a river between earth and heaven we have to cross. Spiritual children who have lived a life of love just walk across on top of the water. Children weighed down by the selfish evil they have committed sink like a stone and have to be cleansed in accordance with the degree of evil they have committed. This spiritual reality is perfect justice, and like a mirror, will reflect back to us whatever we have done. We must always try to be good and be loving, as it is the best way to benefit others and ourselves at the same time. Do not run away from suffering. It is better to stay on the cross of suffering than to run away into sin. We must not try to avoid the truth of suffering of our earthly life by turning to something that is bad for us, but look towards heaven for strength to help us carry the weight of our cross. One day, all our earthly crosses of suffering will be lifted from our shoulders when we enter the heavenly spiritual world in our spiritual body. Share the spiritual way of love with others. Demonstrate the spiritual way of love and non-violence to reach heaven to all other children you meet by your own living example of love as a child of our loving spiritual Creator in the heavenly spiritual world on earth. And share the spiritual teachings and way of love if they are interested, but never force them onto anyone or threaten anyone who is not interested by telling them they will not be saved, which people have told me that. Terrible. That would be evil and against the teachings of Jesus when he said, "If anyone hears my words but does not do them, I do not judge that person. For I did not come to judge, but only to save." We just provide opportunities for love to grow in others. People either accept it or don't, become spiritual or don't. That's all. We just offer. That's all. We don't judge. It's up to them to choose. When sharing the spiritual teachings and way of love, forgiveness and non-violence to any other child, try to gauge their ability to understand them and deliver the teachings in a way to suit each child's capacity to receive them without being overwhelmed by them. I've met some very zealous, Jewish Christians who, oh wow, it's just like it's a full-on hurricane, loudspeakers in your face and ears, and you'll go to hell if you don't believe what I'm saying. They turn people off. It's not a good thing. They need to be more personal and open and just offer. That's all. Offer the gift. If it's rejected, that's fine. Perhaps you'll pick it up later on in your life. Learn about other spiritual faiths and search for love, forgiveness and non-violence in them to find the common ground and avoid becoming exclusive and condemning of all other spiritual ways, which is another big problem among some of the Jewish Christian churches, as it is with the Jews. We're the chosen ones of God. We're the only ones. Oh, really? Have you had a look around at the world? There's a few other people here, by the way. However, if their spiritual teachings are dualistic, coming from a source that is both loving and caring and violent and murderous, then be aware that it is a dualistic way and not yet fully evolved into the way of light and love. Do not join with them. So if you find a new religion you're interested in, just check it out and make sure it hasn't got some violent, murdering war god in it, as well as it's got a love. Don't join it. But continue to stand up for the way of spiritual love and non-violence and never be intimidated by those who follow faulty teachings and are still in the dark about this spiritual truth. And always forgive them if they abuse you for your spiritual belief in only the way of love and non-violence, for this is the true source of our spiritual life. Jesus wants us to be just like him. Jesus did not want to be put on a pedestal high above the rest of us beyond our reach, but rather he sat beside us, ate with us, drank with us, cried with us, and explained how we can achieve exactly what he did by following his spiritual way of love and non-violence to get out of this world and enter the heavenly spiritual world. Every teacher wants their students to have the same understanding as they have and become like them to teach others. Jesus wants us to have the same spiritual understanding of love that he had and wants us to teach others the same. At first, we are all his sheep, but must become a shepherd to whatever degree we can, just like him, and help guide others home through our love. Jesus said, "I no longer call you my disciples, but friends." Equal. Jesus said, "Those who believe in my spiritual way of love and non-violence and live out of it will not only be able to do the works I do, but even greater ones than these." The Jewish Christians don't read his words. They don't like reading his words. He's saying here that any of us can do even greater things than he did. Does that mean we're greater than him? No. Just as he stood sort of on Buddha's shoulders, we stand on his shoulders, and so it goes. We do even more love. We find another way to express love even greater. It's still love, working at 100% for whoever it is at whatever time in the history of humanity. As long as it's 100%, that's all that matters. At that time, in that place, in that condition, with that religion, in that situation, love is love. So it's beautiful that he says we can do even greater things than he did. You see, he's leveling it. He's not on an ivory tower when he says that no one can be like me. He's saying the exact opposite. Oh, you can do more than I can do. If you just follow my words, you'll be able to do even more things, greater things. This is the big problem with the Jewish Christian churches. They've adopted the Jewish, we're the chosen ones overlay. We're the only way. We're the only chosen people of Yahweh, blah, blah, blah. No, no, no. That's not what Jesus wants. He wants you to understand that we all have a spiritual body in us, every single human child on earth. It's either awake, not too awake, asleep, covered in dark, evil, murdering filth. It's the degree of awakening to spirit. That's the only difference between everyone on earth. That's the only difference. It's a universal situation that we are all finding ourselves in. How many of us are fully spiritually awakened? How many are committing murderous, stinking, filthy evil? Russia, Gaza, West Bank, wherever. Ukraine. They're in the black. We try to move into the white. He never said he was the only child of our loving spiritual creator. That was a Jewish overlay put onto him to distort his message. He actually said we can all equally be loving children of our loving spiritual creator, become enlightened and follow him to the heavenly spiritual world after we pass through the death experience of our body of flesh. That is exactly what he taught. Jesus said he was the spiritual way, the spiritual truth and spiritual life. And he wants us to follow him and become awakened to our true spiritual identity like him, so we can also enter the heavenly spiritual world beyond all suffering and join him there. His spiritual way of love, compassion, forgiveness, equanimity, non-violence, generosity and caring for those who have fallen down are the foundational rocks we build our spiritual life on, and as long as we have those in us, we will be a spiritual child of heaven on earth. Loving our spiritual teacher Jesus with all your heart and soul, but not doing what he said to do, is like loving the tree, but never tasting the fruit. We have to become like him. That's what he said. We all have and equally, we are all the only child of God. If you want to look at it, if you want to use that terminology, which is ridiculous, we are all the loving spiritual children of this loving spiritual creator, if you wish to be. It's your choice. The potential is equal in all of us. Only children who are physically seriously damaged and compromised with brain damage, they're the ones we have to really feel great compassion for and help them. They can't choose to be spiritual. They're so physically damaged, their bodies. But the rest of us who have a healthy body, we've got no excuse, I'm afraid. We all have two families. We all have two families, really. One is our biological earthly family and the other is our spiritual family, made up of all the children on earth, regardless of race, religion or no religion, who live a spiritual life of love, forgiveness and non-violence as children of our loving spiritual creator. They are our spiritual brothers and sisters who express their spiritual love within their biological families, towns and countries. This is the only way this earth world can become spiritual. All children on earth are potentially spiritual children of our loving spiritual creator in the heavenly spiritual world, but not everyone knows who they really are or how to be one. And many are lost in the darkness of their own making. We must show them who they really are and can be through our spiritual life and the way we live and treat others. The above are just some of the main instructions and spiritual characteristics we must have described by Jesus to help us all become spiritual children of our loving spiritual creator in the heavenly spiritual world. He said his words are what save us, providing we follow them and live out of them. They can transform who we are and awaken our spiritual body and soul mind of love to have life eternal in the heavenly spiritual world. And it is the only way I know of to bring peace on earth. God is love. Love is life. We really all are spiritual children filled only with love, compassion, forgiveness, non-violence, and equanimity. If we only all knew it, what a difference that would make. We must all wake up to this truth before it's too late. Once you start believing this, things will start happening like that minister at St. Paul's. That was a miracle, what you call a miracle. Intervention from heaven. They could see what was happening. The day before the guy was up there to commit suicide, the day before, he was given a book on how to talk to people who are about to commit suicide and help them come out of it. He started reading it at home, But he went to bed. He couldn't sleep for no apparent reason. The thought came to him, I may as well finish that booklet. He did. Prompted from heaven, you see. It's a prompting. They're prompting him. The next day, what happens? He uses everything he read in that book to save that man's life. That is heaven seeing you and me and him and knowing the next day that guy is going to commit suicide. Heaven knows that. They seem to have the ability to see ahead. However, we still have to make choices. He didn't have to go over. He could have denied that prompting. No, I'm too scared. The man with the one talent, who buries it in the earth. Oh no, I'm too scared to do that. I'm not ready. No, the prompting was, no, you go. And he did. And he saved that man's life. So that's the same for all of us. Once you open up to heaven and believe in heaven, things will start coming into your life that guide you. They're very subtle. Sometimes they're very quirky, out of left field, a really funny sort of message that you need, but you just, no one known you expected it to come that way into your life, but it does. They know what you want, what you need, what your desires are. And I'm not talking about material wealth and Ferraris or anything like that, not those desires, but the desires to have a happier life, a more loving life, a more caring life. They know what you're trying to grow in spirit, and they will help guide you because they are spiritual. They won't help you become wealthy and materialistic. You have to go over to Satan to do that. They'll only help you become more spiritual, get ready to enter this higher level of life in another world, another dimension. It's a spiritual, heavenly, nirvanic world. It exists. They can see us, but we can't see them. So that's a beautiful example what that minister from St. Paul's told me. I can't remember his name, unfortunately, but lovely couple, lovely man. Anyway, there's the example I can give you of his sort of miraculous connection, the nexus from heaven. Heaven connected to him and prompted him and actually set it up. You see, they set it up. That's the amazing thing, isn't it? The day before, this guy just decided to give him the booklet. Just that day, the day before. Maybe he was going to give it a few days before, but forgot. Maybe he could have given it to him the next day after the man committed suicide. No, it was exactly the day before, just as he was going home. The next day, the man's up there to commit suicide. The book is fresh in his mind. Literally, that's the last thing he's read before he goes into the church, St. Paul's. It's still fresh in his mind. It hasn't even had time to dissipate or forget about it. It's all there. He goes up, talks to the man using everything he read in the booklet, given to him by the man, prompted by heaven to give it to him on that day, at that time. He couldn't sleep. He read it all. He saved the man's life. Heaven was directly involved with those three people. Heaven directed that child to give him the booklet. Heaven made sure he didn't go to sleep so he could finish it. Heaven made sure of that. He then went. He was prompted. You go and help him. Don't ask for someone else to do it or think, don't pray for someone else to do it. It's your turn. You do it. He felt that. He really felt that. And he went with it. Even though he was a little, bit of trepidation about doing it. He'd never done anything like that. But he was totally successful. All organised by heaven, but the flow was moving with it, you see. If you're in a little sailboat, if you're moving in the right direction, you might say, the wind will be in your sail and help move you along faster. But if you're going against the wind, remember the Greek word for wind, breath, air is spirit. If you're going against the spirit, it's going to try to push you back, to turn around. In other words, you're going the wrong way. You've got to go the right way, and then the spirit's in your sail and can move you along faster, or it can coordinate that beautiful combination. The colleague who gave him the booklet exactly at the end of the day before the man was going to go up and commit suicide. He reads it that night at home, fresh in his mind. He couldn't sleep. He had to finish it. Heaven made sure. He goes to work the next morning at St. Paul's Church. He used everything he read. That's a beautiful, I love sharing that one. I'll leave you with that little miracle. Because that's what it is, you see. That's what miracles are. You've got to remember, the word miracle isn't just a miraculous healing of your physical body that's sick. That's the most common understanding of the word miracle. The Greek word miracle really means signs and wonders. Jesus performed signs and wonders that heaven exists. You see, that's what those signs and wonders are telling us. This other world of much higher power. And when I use the word higher power, I'm talking about love. Not like, crackpot nuclear missile power. No, that's not. Guns aren't powerful. Love is powerful. It's pure. It's another dimension. This is all dirt. All guns are just dirt, So it's a beautiful power that can help us. If we're just heading in the right direction towards heaven, then the Spirit's with us, helping move us along. If you're going away from heaven, then the Spirit will try to push you back, turn around. You're going the wrong way. You're going to have to fight against love to do evil. The way most people do it, like, Putin, Netanyahu, Hitler, Hamas, all the mass murderers, the current ones and all the past ones and the ones that are to come, they have to kill their conscience. Once they kill their conscience, they've moved out of their spiritual identity into the false shadow identity. Once they're in the false shadow identity, they can kill anyone, do anything they want. There's no consequence because they're this filthy, stinking, satanic identity that has no real spiritual life in it. Frightening. They don't know what sort of hell that is. They don't realise it. They really don't. They're that ignorant, they don't even realise what they're doing. I really feel sorry for them. They got no idea what they're heading into. No idea. So, they're the spiritual characteristics, generally speaking, in that chapter. They're sort of some of the main ones that we need to be practicing and be at one with. So remember, love your way to heaven or hate your way to hell. The choice is yours and mine. That was a long one. Bye for now.